What if I told you there are only 6 exercises you need to completely transform your body after 40? If you master these, you will look and feel years younger. These are the same exercises that my clients in their 40s, 50s, and 60s use to gain muscle and strength fast. And they're the same ones I use to take my body from this to this. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through each one, but I'm not just gonna give you a random list, because the truth is there's no one size fits all. Some exercises will be perfect for you, while others will hold you back or even injure you. So I'll show you exactly how to pick the ones that fit your body so you stop wasting time on exercises that don't work for you. So there's really no one size fits all when it comes to exercises. I would honestly be doing you a disservice if I just gave you a list of exercises in this video, because the truth is some exercises work well for some people and won't work for others. You might have injuries or structural limitations that prevent you from doing certain exercises that might generally be considered to be very good exercises, right? And this is why I don't like these videos on YouTube where people are just giving you a list of exercises instead of actually teaching you how to pick the right ones for you, because not all exercises work for everyone. Like for example, recently I was talking to my client Daniel, who's 62 years old, and Daniel struggles with arthritis in his lower back, and we had him doing exercises like leg presses and Romanian deadlifts in his routine as his primary leg movements, and we realized that those movements were seriously aggravating his lower back, and so we switched him over to doing exercises like Bulgarian split squats and seated hamstring curls, movements that didn't compress his spine and didn't aggravate his lower back pain. Does that mean leg press and Romanian deadlifts are bad exercises? Absolutely not. They're fantastic, but they don't work in all cases, and that goes for every single exercise. There are some exercises that are great exercises that just might not work well for you, right? So in this video, I want to help you understand how to pick the right exercises for you, right? There's that age-old saying that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. So in this video, I want to actually teach you how to fish. So what makes an exercise worth your time? Well, I use a 5-point checklist to determine whether an exercise is actually worth doing or not. So as I'm going through this 5-step checklist, I'd strongly recommend thinking to yourself, do my current exercises hit these criteria or not? So the first criteria is, does it work a lot of muscle mass? So you really want to place most of your attention on exercises that work a lot of muscle mass throughout your body. You want to focus on multi-joint, multi-muscle movements that are very bang for your buck, because that's going to make your training a lot more efficient. The second criteria is, can you load it heavily? The reason why it's important to choose exercises that you can load heavily is because tension is the primary driver of muscle growth. And in order to place tension on your muscles, you need to lift relatively heavy weights. And so you want to pick exercises that are actually conducive to you lifting heavy. The third criteria is it easy to progressively overload? So it's really important that you choose exercises that you can easily progressively overload over time. And by progressively overload, I just mean get stronger at. So you want to choose movements that are conducive to you being able to add a little bit of weight each week, or to add a rep, and just see an increase in strength over time. Because the stronger you can get at the exercises you do, the more muscle you will be able to build through them, because they have a huge potential for muscle and strength gain. Whereas some exercises are very difficult to progressively overload, and they have a very strong cap to how strong you can get at them. And those are exercises that you're not going to be able to build that much muscle through. So you want to focus mostly on movements that are easy to get stronger at over time, because really, as a natural man over 40 who's not taking steroids, no enhancements, there's a very strong relationship between muscle size and muscle strength. So basically, your Polaris star in the gym is to get as strong as possible on the exercises that you're choosing to prioritize. Obviously, in order to get really strong, you need to choose exercises that actually allow you to get very strong over time. Now, the fourth criteria is, does it take the muscle through a full range of motion? It's really important that the exercises that you choose to do take the targeted muscle through a full range of motion, which means being able to get a good stretch on the muscle and also a good contraction. And so I see a lot of people in the gym oftentimes trying to work their chest with exercises like pin presses, where they set the safeties to where they can only bring the bar down to like here on a bench press, or they put like a block on their chest in order to take away that like the final inches. And it's like, if you're trying to build your chest, that's completely counterproductive. You want to be able to choose an exercise that is going to allow you to get a full stretch and then also a full contraction. So make sure that the exercises that you're doing actually take the targeted muscle through a full range of motion. If it doesn't, you're probably better off picking something else. Now, the fifth criteria is, does it feel good and do you enjoy it? So you want to pick exercises that feel good on your body, because if they don't feel good on your body, they're probably not well suited to your structure. And you also want to enjoy the exercises that you're doing, because if you don't enjoy the exercises you're doing in the gym, you're going to dread your workouts. And if you dread your workouts, you're probably not going to stay consistent with working out. So it's helpful to pick movements that you actually look forward to doing, because then you're more likely to stay consistent with training. And ultimately, that's the most important ingredient for long-term success. By the way, guys, if you'd like my personal help putting this into action so you can build muscle, feel proud of what you see in the mirror, and regain your confidence and masculinity, click the link in my description below and book a free call with me. During the call, we'll break down your current situation, identify what's holding you back, and outline a clear plan to help you achieve your goals. There's zero pressure. It's just a real conversation to see if I can help you or not. And whether you join or not, you'll walk away with clarity and a path forward. Now, when it comes to exercise selection, it's really important to understand the difference between compound and isolation exercises. These are the two different types of movements that you're going to be doing in the gym, and any effective weight training program should have a balance of both. But it's really important that you understand the difference between them. So compound exercises are multi-joint, multi-muscle movements. Isolation exercises are single joint and single muscle movements. So compound exercises are your bread and butter movements. These are like the meat and potatoes of your workout routine. These movements are going to build the most muscle and strength. These are going to be responsible for like 80 to 90% of the muscle that you're capable of building. Whereas isolation exercises are the icing on top of the cake. They exist to plug the gaps left by the compound exercises. So oftentimes, through just doing compound exercises, some of the smaller muscle groups will lag behind a little bit. And that's where it's effective to use some isolation work in order to target those smaller muscle groups to make sure that you don't develop weaknesses and imbalances. And so now I want to walk you through how to pick both your compound exercises and your isolation exercises. Now, the truth is, you really don't need tons of exercises. You just need a handful that work your entire body effectively. So there's a framework that I use to pick the compound exercises called the Core 6. The idea behind the Core 6 is that there are 6 fundamental movement patterns that exist for human beings. We have squats, hip hinges, vertical pushes, vertical pulls, horizontal pushes, and horizontal pulls. Now, the idea behind the Core 6 is that you pick a really big and effective compound exercise for each of these movement patterns, and then those will be the foundation of your workout routine. Those are going to be the movements that you're going to want to master and get really, really strong at. And the reason why I love this framework so much is because it really just cuts through the bullshit, it cuts through the noise, and makes exercise selection really, really simple. And so where I think a lot of people go wrong with exercise selection is that they think of things in terms of muscle groups. But I really like to think of things in terms of movement patterns, because if you hit on all the movement patterns, you don't have to think about your muscles, because you'll hit all the muscles basically. And that's why I really like this, because it really simplifies things. You don't have to think about like all the 1,000 different exercises you could do for each little muscle. You just think about what are the big movement patterns, and then you pick a big exercise for each of those movement patterns, and then you just focus on getting really, really strong at them over time. And I promise you, if you have a Core 6 in your workout routine, that's really like the foundation, and you pick good movements for you, you're not really going to have like any difficulty with developing like a well-rounded physique, because this is going to make sure that your workout is well-rounded, right? So these are the movements that are going to be responsible for 80 to 90% of your muscle and strength gains. So now let's go one by one through these different movement patterns and take a look at the different exercises that you can do for each of them, right? And so for each of these movement patterns, I'll show you what my number one choice is, and then I'll show you a few proven alternatives or swaps if that main one doesn't feel right for your body. So the first movement pattern is going to be the squat. So your squatting movement is going to cover your quads, glutes, and adductors. And my primary choice for your squatting movement would be the barbell back squat. Now, as I'm going through this, if you're a beginner, I would strongly recommend starting with the primary choice and then seeing if that works well for you and then going through the rest of the alternatives almost like an experiment. So start with the first one. If the first one doesn't work, then go to the second. Second doesn't work, go to the third, and so on. If you're a bit more experienced and you're familiar with these exercises, I would strongly recommend just looking at the list of them and then just picking the one that you would prefer and that feels best for you. The reason why I chose the barbell back squat as the best squatting movement is because it's really the king of muscle building exercises. There's really no other exercise that's going to put more muscle and strength on your physique than the barbell back squat. It's just such an efficient movement that recruits so much muscle throughout your body. And back in the pre-steroid era, back in the 40s and 50s, when bodies were a product of sound fitness practices rather than drug abuse, men called the squat the growing exercise because of its potential to pack muscle onto your entire body. It was looked at as like the king of exercises. You had no business not doing it if you wanted to build muscle. And it's also just one of the most universally accessible exercises. Like you can squat in any gym. So if you cannot do the barbell back squat, if this does not work well for you, I would try the leg press next. If the leg press doesn't work for you, I'd move on to the hack squat. If that doesn't work, I'd try the hip belt squat. And if that doesn't work, then I do the Bulgarian split squat. So the next movement pattern is going to be your hip hinge. Your hip hinge is going to cover your posterior chain, which would be your glutes, hamstrings, lower back, and erectors. My primary choice for the hip hinge would be the Romanian deadlift with the barbell. Now, the reason why I really love the Romanian deadlift is because of the deep stretch it allows you to get on your hamstrings. It's just such a powerhouse for building really strong glutes and hamstrings. And I also find it to be less taxing on your system than a lot of other deadlifts where you're pulling off of the floor. So if you can't do Romanian deadlifts, you could experiment with a conventional deadlift. You could do a stiff-legged deadlift, or you could do a trap bar deadlift. Now, there are some people for whom deadlifting in general just doesn't really work that well. If you have a history of lower back pain and you find that doing any kind of deadlift just aggravates it, I'd probably just stay away from them. I have a client named Sergio who I was talking to recently, and we tried to implement Romanian deadlifts in his routine as his primary hip hinge movement. And no matter how good he got his form, he just kept tweaking his lower back. And so we just figured like, okay, let's just take this out. Let's just do seated hamstring curls instead. So that is an alternative as well. If you can use a deadlift in your routine though, I would strongly recommend it because you're going to get a lot more muscle growth benefits throughout your entire body as opposed to just doing a hamstring curl. Now, the next movement pattern is your vertical push. Now, the vertical push is going to hit your shoulders, triceps, and upper chest. And my primary choice for the vertical press would be a seated dumbbell overhead press. The reason why I really like the seated dumbbell overhead press as the primary vertical pushing movement is because it's a lot more stable than a lot of other overhead pressing. Like standing overhead pressing, for example, is not very stable. It doesn't allow you to get the same stimulus on your shoulders. And I find doing seated overhead pressing with a barbell is just a little bit awkward. I find dumbbells are like the perfect sweet spot because dumbbells allow, like obviously you're going to be seated, so you're going to have a more stable foundation to press off of, but they also allow you to get like a really deep stretch and allow you to touch the dumbbells to your shoulders. And I just find it's a lot more comfortable of a movement. So that's why I really like the seated dumbbell overhead press. But if you want to do a different overhead press, maybe you don't enjoy this one, maybe it doesn't work for you that well, you could do the standing barbell overhead press. You could do the seated barbell overhead press, or you could do a machine overhead press. Now, the next movement pattern is your vertical pull. So at this point, we've knocked out the squatting movement pattern, we've knocked out the hip hinge and the vertical push. And that's literally half of your body covered. So now let's go through the rest. So this is going to cover your lats, your upper back, and your biceps. And my main choice for this movement pattern is the chin up. Now, there's really no better exercise for your vertical pull than the simple chin up. Chin ups are so brutally effective for developing your upper body, it's not even funny. Chin ups are going to build that V-taper look. They're gonna fill out your lats, they're gonna hit your biceps, they're gonna hit your upper back, they're gonna build your forearms, your core. Like, this is just such a powerhouse movement. And the thing that is so powerful about chin ups is the progressive overload potential. So over the years, I've worked my way up to literally 100-pound attached weighted chin ups 4 reps. So you can get really, really strong at this exercise over time if you get a weight belt and you progressively overload it. So there's just nothing better than chin-ups when it comes to your vertical pulls. If you are someone who cannot do body weight chin-ups yet, you could start with assisted chin-ups. So if your gym has one of those assisted chin-up machines where you can put your knees on the pad and you can sort of take some weight off of you and just work on that movement pattern, that would be really, really good. If you don't have that though, I would probably just recommend starting with lat pull downs. So here are some of the alternatives. So obviously you can do a pull-up. This could honestly be interchangeable with the chin-up. The only difference is the grip. So with chin-ups, you're using a supinated grip. With pull-ups, you're using a pronated grip. And honestly, I'd recommend just swapping between these every few months because they place emphasis on slightly different things. You could also do the neutral grip chin-up. That's basically where you just hold your hands like this in a neutral position on the bar. And then you could also do a lat pull down. The next movement pattern is your horizontal push. So the horizontal push is going to hit your chest, shoulders, and triceps. And my primary choice for the horizontal push is the incline dumbbell bench press. So there are a few reasons why I really love the incline dumbbell bench press as the primary horizontal pushing movement. The first thing is that it allows you to get a really deep stretch on your chest. So you're not limited like you are with barbells where you have to stop the bar on your chest. You can go deeper and get a really, really deep stretch. The next thing is that it's a lot safer on your shoulders. So I found for myself, I had a shoulder injury last year and it kind of affected my ability to use barbells for chest pressing. It just never felt the same after I injured my shoulder. So the thing about dumbbell pressing, specifically incline, is that it allows you to change your grip a little bit. So like with barbells, you're locked into a specific grip, but with dumbbells, you can twist the dumbbells inwards like this, and you can tuck your elbows a little bit more. It's a lot safer on your shoulders. And I've just found working with men over 40 that this is the movement that's most effective for them. A lot of men over 40 also have had previous shoulder injuries in the past, or their shoulders are weak and they're sort of decrepit, and barbell pressing just doesn't feel that good like most of the time. I have a client named Michael who is really struggling with barbell pressing and because of a previous shoulder injury, and we switched him to doing incline dumbbell bench press, and it immediately fixed the problem. Like he no longer felt his shoulder pain at all, and it's because with dumbbell pressing you can keep your elbows more tucked, you can change the grip so that it's more comfortable on your shoulders. So if you don't want to do the incline dumbbell bench press, I'd recommend doing the flat barbell bench press. Now if that doesn't work, do the incline barbell bench press. Next, you could do the flat dumbbell bench press, or you could do a machine chest press. Now, the next movement pattern is the horizontal pull. This is going to cover your upper back and lats, and my primary choice for the horizontal pull is barbell rows. Now, honestly, I find it very difficult to choose one row that's better than the rest of them because I find all rows are very good exercises in general. The reason why I pick barbell rows is because I think they're the biggest bang for your buck rows that you can do, because they don't just work your upper back, they also work your lower back, right? And it also, I find, has more carryover to some of the other exercises that you're doing in terms of strength. And so I think barbell rows are king for upper back thickness. Now, if you don't want to do barbell rows, I would recommend doing dumbbell rows. You could do dumbbell rows in the same way that you would do barbell rows, just bent over with the dumbbells in your hands, or you could do one arm dumbbell rows to where you have your leg and your hand up on the bench and you just do one arm at a time. You could do incline dumbbell rows. There are so many different options when it comes to dumbbell rows, but that would be my next choice. The next thing would be cable rows. And if you don't want to do cable rows, you could do chest supported machine rows. So that's your core 6. Those are the core 6 movements that should form the foundation of your training routine and should be the exercises that you strive to master and get really strong at over time. Now, if you're brand new to training, as I said earlier on, I would start with the main default exercise that I chose for each of the movement patterns. And then if that doesn't work well for you, then sort of go down the list of each of the movements and test different ones to see what you enjoy and what works really well for you. But once you've picked the core 6, you have your main movements, you have your bread and butter, you have the foundation of your training routine, and now all you have to do is pick the isolation exercises. So remember, isolation exercises exist to plug the gaps left by the compound movements. So maybe through doing your core 6, you develop some weak points, you develop some imbalances. That's where you want to allocate some isolation work. So all you want to do is just pick the isolation exercises based on your weak points. So you want to ask yourself, what's lagging behind? what's not being hit that hard through the core 6 alone. And so, for example, some examples of different isolation exercises or muscle groups that you'd want to target with isolation exercises would be things like bicep curls, tricep extensions, calf raises, neck curls, lateral raises, face pulls, ab work. These are just some examples of isolation exercises that are very common because these are usually like the muscle groups of the exercises that sort of would lag behind from the compound movements. So if, for example, you see that your biceps are lagging behind because they're not getting hit that hard through the core 6 alone, you'd throw in some bicep curls. Maybe your triceps lag behind, throw in some tricep extensions. Calves, throw in some calf raises. You get the point. Although you do not want to have too many different isolation exercises in your routine, you really want to stay focused with them. You want to pick the ones that you feel would best hit the weak points that you've developed. So to put everything together, I'm now going to show you an example workout routine from all the different exercises that we picked. So my training philosophy revolves around doing 2 full body workouts per week. Now I'm not going to go into why that's the case in this video. I have plenty of other videos that talk about that at length. So I'm just going to show you an example of how a full body twice a week setup would look like with the exercises that we just chose. So fundamentally, you're going to have a workout A, which you're going to do on Monday or Tuesday. And then you're going to have a workout B, which you're going to do on Thursday or Friday. So if you remember our core 6, we have squats, hip hinges, vertical pushes, vertical pulls, horizontal pushes, and horizontal pulls. And so the way that I like to split those exercises up is on the workout A, I like to do the squat, the vertical pull, and then the vertical push, and then 3 isolation exercises. And on the workout B, I like to do the horizontal push, the hip hinge, the horizontal pull, and then a few isolation exercises. So here's how this would look. So on your workout A, you would start with barbell back squats. And for all these exercises, I would recommend doing 2 sets. Then you'd have your chin-ups. Then you'd have your seated dumbbell overhead press. Then let's say for the isolation exercises, you're gonna do tricep extensions, calf raises, and then abs. And then on your workout B, you're gonna have the incline dumbbell bench press. You're gonna have your Romanian deadlift. You're gonna have barbell rows. And then for the isolation exercises, you're gonna have bicep curls, lateral raises, and then neck curls. So now you've seen how to pick your core 6 exercises, the main compound lifts that you're gonna focus on mastering and getting really strong at over time, your core movements. And you've also seen how to pick the isolation exercises and then how to take those exercises and form it into a productive workout routine. So this is the exact template I build for my clients before customizing it for their body and their schedule. So if you wanna see how you can take everything you've learned today about exercise selection and turn it into a full-fledged 2-day per week training routine that you can follow to gain muscle and strength, click here to watch this video where I break down the 2 workout, 2 set method my clients over 40 are following to gain muscle quickly.